joined now by Congresswoman Cori Bush, Democrat from Missouri. Congresswoman, good morning. Thanks for being back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let me pick up where my colleague Leanne left off there. Where are you on this effort by some of your Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate side to focus on a more narrow version of voting reform? I know that you support voting reform more broadly. Would you back this more slimmed down plan?
You know, I can't say I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. So I would need to see it. And there are some things that I have to have. You know, we need campaign finance reform. We do need the ethics reform. You know, I want to make sure that we are expanding voter registration and access, and then making sure that we're limiting how people are able to be removed from the voter rolls. Like, you know, some of us live in these states where so many detrimental things are happening as it relates to voting rights. And so we have to be strong in that area. So I have to see it first.
Okay, so we'll come back to you on that one once you get a chance to look at whatever this plan is. I want to ask you about something else that I know is important to you personally, professionally, and to many Americans, which is this renter eviction moratorium. It's set to expire tomorrow. As I know you know, the House Speaker has sent out this Dear Colleague letter overnight about trying to extend it. So a couple of questions for you. Number one, is there going to be a vote on that today? What have you heard, and what can you share with us?
We're definitely hoping there's a vote on that today. I know I am. We can't wait any longer. You know, I've called for the White House to extend the moratorium as recently as this week. You know, so this is something that has to happen. And
I'm sorry, Congressman. Are you surprised that the White House didn't do that?
You know, yes. I mean, we knew that this was coming, but you know what? Right now is the time. We got to get it done today. People are looking at us like, what are you going to do? Like, I know what it's like to be evicted and you don't have a place to go. What happens right now in a pandemic? We are the richest country in the world. Why can't we make sure that our people have a place to sleep, have a place to go to the bathroom, have a place to stay safe from COVID-19 as best they can? That's on us. It's a policy choice, and it's ours to make.
Do you think you have the votes for that?
I believe this will happen. I believe this will happen. How do you go back to your district and say I voted against? You know, especially on the Democrats, how do we go back to our districts and say we voted against people staying in their homes during a pandemic? You know, this has got to happen.
You mentioned the pandemic, you mentioned COVID. Viewers of our show will know in the next couple of weeks, I'll be having some stories from this reporting trip that I did in Missouri. We were out there all across the state, actually, for several days. We did the show from there. It is a state that is dealing with a surge in the virus. Infections are up something like 67% in the last couple of weeks. And now the Republican Attorney General of your state is suing St. Louis after St. Louis put back in place this mask mandate. So a couple of questions here. Do you support this the vaccine mandate that President Biden has put in place for federal workers as this conversation happens nationally, right, about what should be required, what shouldn't, et cetera? And do you think private employers should do this too?
You know, I think that President Biden is trying to make a decision that's going to make sure that every single person is safe, because we're not only talking about ourselves, but we're talking about our neighbors, the people we work with, their children that aren't able to get vaccinated because they're too young, those who are immunocompromised that you don't see, that you don't get, that you may not know. So I understand why he's making that decision. And then as far as in my community in St. Louis, I stand with our mayor, Tashara Jones. I stand in St. Louis County. I want St. Louis County to have this mask mandate because I feel like it's our duty to make sure we're taking care of our communities, because what happens? You have 600,000 people that have died. If something happened if somebody else came in and hurt our country and took out 600,000 of our people, we would be like, that would be a whole thing. We would be ready to fight. We would be fighting, you know, but instead we're doing it to ourselves. We're allowing governors to do this to their own people that they're supposed to be protecting. So no longer. So I stand with our people in St. Louis saying that we need to have this mask mandate. We're making sure we have those vaccination centers. Our mayor just made sure that she dedicated money to have pop-up centers. That's what we have to do. Because what happens in another year? Do we look back and say, oh, I'll let your family member die because we didn't do the work? No, we're doing the work. We want to keep your people safe. So let's stand together. We're one community.
I want to get you an infrastructure, but quickly here, because Kevin McCarthy has said something like 80 Republicans are either not vaccinated or haven't said one way or the other. Do you think your members of Congress, your colleagues, should all have a vaccine mandate for themselves?
A mandate, well, let me just say this. If they don't want to get a vaccination, that is, you know, that just shows how much they represent, who they represent and what they represent. But they should have to wear a mask. If they're not going to get vaccinated, then they should have to wear a mask. These are representatives. I mean, I think that they should, they should care enough to go ahead and get the vaccine. I did, and as a Black woman, it was very difficult for me, but I went on ahead and did it because I understand that's what my communities need, and leaders lead from the front. So lead, get the vaccination.
Okay, let me ask you quickly about infrastructure before I let you go. That may be headed for a vote shortly, and we couldn't help but notice the tweet that you sent about that negotiating team, bipartisan team on this. You asked, is this the bipartisan infrastructure group or the audience at a Kid Rock concert with the hashtag negotiations so white? Talk to us about that and what you think of this bill as it currently stands.
Look, when a negotiation room is entirely white people, there's a lived experience that is completely missing from the conversation. It matters who's in the room. So although right now there are no Black women in the Senate, and we understand that, but there are Black people, there are brown people, there are AAPI people. So right now there's nobody in the room that's making it clear what the consequences of this bipartisan infrastructure package will mean for people who don't look like them, and that's the problem. So I would love for Senator Sinema to reach out to me. Let's talk about what it looks like. Let's talk about what St. Louis is going through as far as a result of climate change. We need to make sure that they're hearing that. So this is not enough. This is not good enough. And so I'm going to call it out.
Congresswoman Cori Bush, we are so glad to have you on the show. And this is something I think we're going to be talking about more. Thank you very much for coming on. We hope to have you back again soon. Appreciate it.